Why, hello. How wonderful of you to join me again for this month's literary salon. So, do you remember what we're reading? Yes? Oh, we are reading Jonathan Swift's wonderfully satirical novel, Gulliver's Travels. Now, children's book. What do you mean children's book? This isn't a children's book. This is an absolutely biting piece of political satire. Didn't you see it? Oh, you watched the movie. Oh, then you've missed the point, haven't you? I know I did suggest that you could watch the movie with Tristram Shandy, but not with Gulliver. Gulliver is absolutely a written text. There is no way you can get away with watching the movie and understanding Gulliver's Travels. It is not a children's story at all. Mr. Swift is one of the finest satirists of the Queen Anne age. He's very early, and Gulliver's Travels, now, as you have already worked out the basic plot, Gulliver is a ship's surgeon who goes and has various voyages and travels around in which he meets little tiny 6-inch people, and he meets giants, and a land where the elite fly above while the lower orders fight down the bottom. And then finally, possibly the most memorable of his voyages, aside from the initial one where everyone remembers Lilliput, is the land of the Winhams and the Yahoos, the talking horses, and the Yahoos that they have decided that they're going to get rid of, and that they view Gulliver as one of. Now, that's the basic plot, the basic outline of the story. However, it's not really what it's doing. It's actually a lot more interesting. So remember back when I introduced the novel to you as this wonderful, exciting, amazing piece of technology or narrative device that we have suddenly acquired. Not everybody was so terribly, terribly thrilled by the beginnings of the novel. Among them was Mr. Jonathan Swift, who was exceptionally sceptical of the novel. And whereas someone like Lawrence Sterne in Tristram Shandy is playing with and stretching the confines of the novel as far as they possibly can, Mr. Swift is trolling the novel. Mr. Swift is using the novel to undermine the novel itself. Gulliver is the kind of man he despises, the kind of man who is unmoored from tradition, from classical civilization, from a deep understanding of subjects. He is a modern man, a man with just enough knowledge to make money, but not nearly enough to be considered truly wise. To put him in a 21st century context, Gulliver is to Jonathan Swift what those people who troll and disseminate poorly understood science around climate change, for instance, or your current plague, or vaccination, this sort of thing. They're those people who do not understand how to read science. They think they do. They understand it enough to be able to go back to an old book, look something up, and then argue that as though it's never been superseded. Because they don't understand that idea. This is the kind of man that Gulliver is for his people. To Swift. So whereas people who use the little knowledge they have in a dangerous way in the 21st century, Swift sees the knowledge that Gulliver has being used in a very damaging way because it is only used for commerce, and commerce is a very low form of engagement with the world. So from that perspective, this is still an enormously readable book and an enormously satirical book. I understand that reading through all the annotations in the back of your book is very tedious, and if you don't have a strong understanding of Queen Anne, England, it means nothing. That is entirely understandable. But rather, there is a different way of reading it. You, in the 21st century, are at the end of the people that Gulliver is at the beginning of, this mercantile, what you call capitalist world, where things are only of value if they can be sold. Things are only need to be known, you only need to know enough to dazzle people so that they buy your wares. This is something Mr. Swift sees as exceedingly worth satirising, and as a bad turn for society. Now, the other thing that Mr. Swift does in this novel is undermine the novel's authority. Now, last time I spoke to you about how the reader goes along with Sterne precisely because we trust that contract. We are trusting that authorial contract that Sterne creates with Tristram. Now, in Gulliver, Swift wishes to undermine that. He wishes us to not believe what Gulliver is telling us. In fact, Gulliver very, very pointedly keeps pressing that what he is saying is true, it's true, it's true, it's true, and Brutus is an honourable man. In fact, he even uses as proof that what he is saying is true is the arch traitor of the classical world, Scion. Scion, who convinces the Trojans to bring the Greek horse into their city and destroys the city of Troy. Scion, who Swift knows, or at least hopes, that any sensible reader would know, is from the Aeneid by Virgil. So again, he casts back to the classical world, whereas the novel, as this upstart literary thing, does not. It is entirely modern. So these are ways that you can read Gulliver as continuing satire. It is vicious political satire, but it is also satire on the novel itself, and thus makes it a very interesting one for our second novel. Now, I will see you again in September, towards the end, when we will read, Mr. Fielding's The History of Tom Jones, a Foundling. So I look forward to seeing you then, and I wish you a good day.